So, first, we'll talk about how it started. I grew up in a small town in Arkansas called Moscow. Yeah, like Russia. And so, I graduated from Pine Bluff High School pretty much near the top of my class. I was a nerd. I was in the band. I played alto sax, and I went to school at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. I started out in computer engineering. After my first semester, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. But I did learn a little bit of coding. And so I went to that catalog of different degrees and I picked out accounting. So I graduated with a degree in accounting. And I didn't immediately go to grad school because I was like, I gotta make some money to put some money in my pocket. And so I applied to different accounting jobs. Nobody hired me right out the gate. I didn't have any internships going into the corporate world. And so I ended up stepping into a career where I was dispatching trucks. I got an internship, and then ultimately that led to me becoming a supervisor and working from there. And then some of the people I worked with in that department ended up going over to this inventory management group. And so from there, I ventured over to that where I was implementing SAP into the warehouse facilities. And so I did that, enjoyed it, traveled a lot. It was also hard on a marriage. So if anybody knows that has to travel and you were married, yeah, that's a whole different thing. So I got married along the way too, and also divorced along the way. And so from there, I ended up going into, I guess, while I was working in that whole inventory management space, some of the people that I had interviewed with along the way in accounting remembered me. So I ventured over as an accounting analyst from that role and then started working on implementations from the accounting aspect. So started working on the different reports, recreating what they had in one URL-based system to actually putting it into the system that we were implementing into the facilities. And so from there, just promoted up and became the liaison, working directly with the IT teams and being the voice for the business leaders and the business users to be able to get things coded, get systems off the ground, moving things from one system to another. As you know, with every corporate environment, there's always change. And so that's one of the things that I always preach. I feel like that I've had to adapt to along the way was change. And so it's also one of the hardest things that people can adapt to. And so from there, I decided, okay, well, I kind of want to move over to the plant side. When my favorite manager left, I was like, let me do something different. And so then I moved into a rotational role as the plant accountant. So instead of training people on the systems at the plant and the accounting staff to do it, I actually became that so I can understand the numbers. And so worked with the operations team at the plant, had to do audits, climbing silos on top of the building, doing internal audits for fixed assets. So I did a little bit of all of that. And then I had a small team there and then promoted up to managing the role that I had just left from the plant, and also had about 3 other locations that I managed, and was the senior controller. And that's when I left that company after 16 and a half years. So in that role, I worked with the operations VP, so rolled up all the detail for all of my facilities, worked on big capital projects, and all those different things. And so, but even in all that, I was still looking for something. And I applied to several director jobs, and we'll get onto that with the whole rant series of the good old boys and some of the woes of working in corporate, and how you can have all the things and all the knowledge and the drive and set in place and still not get the promotion that you desire, and be as good as your peers and still not get it. And so it's one of the things that I was just like, okay, maybe I've capped out at this whole thing. And so then that's when I said, I need to look elsewhere. And so I guess in part two, I'll discuss my leaving. Yeah, I quit after 16 and a half years. I wasn't fired. I didn't sign a 1 year or so non-compete. I just quit. It just happened to be a coincidence that it was a year from the time that I left that publicly traded company and ended up the other company after I moved from Arkansas here to Texas, that I started my new role. So we'll talk about that more in the next episode.